Marketing and real world experiences are two different things, and something that I try and really portray in my videos as much as possible. Now here we've got the Alienware AW2521HF. It's a 24.5 inch 240Hz IPS display that can be found for around £320 in the UK and around $400 in the US. If you're interested in purchasing this monitor for some reason, the locally link will take you to your localized Amazon store, but in the description below you'll find alternative suggestions, namely the Asus monitor, which I have previously tested and I found it to be one of the best fast-paced gaming monitors out there on the market. Now elsewhere, if you do have Instagram, I'd very much appreciate a follow. It's at TotallyDubbed, and furthermore, if you're interested in all electric or hybrid news or reviews, do check out Totally EV. Your support would be equally appreciated. So let's kick things off and talk about raw specs. As I said, it's 24.5 inch 240Hz IPS panel. This is a full HD panel, so it's 1920x1080p. It's got a quoted response time of 1 millisecond, and we'll get onto this in just a bit. It's got DisplayPort, 2 HDMI ports, which is nice to see, and you've got a USB hub as well. You've got AMD FreeSync Premium technology, and it's also G-Sync compatible certified, which is again a nice inclusion, and it's got also a fully adjustable stand. Now the adjustable stand allows you to tilt, pivot, rotate, and pretty much do whatever to your heart's content. The only thing that you should be mindful about is the fact that the stand is a bit chunky, so you might want to look at the measurements on Dell/Alienware's website. Elsewhere, there is RGB lights at the back of the monitor on the stand, and it also is present on the front side LED, which can be disabled if you so wish. For me, I don't really like RGB lights, and furthermore, I don't really see the point of them, but I can see there's the appeal for them. The only thing worth bearing in mind over here, it's not as strong as Philips Hue, for example, so unless you're a completely pitch black room, you're not going to really see the benefits of the RGB light being positioned at the back of the monitor. Elsewhere, the monitor has a three-sided borderless design, and there's no complaints over here whatsoever in terms of its aesthetics. I think Dell/Alienware have done a good job in terms of designing the monitor, at least for the actual panel itself. And now we get on to the OST, which can be accessed through a little joystick found at the back at bottom right of the monitor, and through here you can see the game settings. So you've got different preset modes that you can choose from. These will change the color and stuff. You've got the game enhanced modes, which truthfully are not going to be really useful to most. You've got FreeSync that you can enable or disable. If you're a competitive gamer, you're probably going to want to have this disabled. You've got the response time, which we're going to touch upon in a little bit, specifically in terms of the image quality section with the extreme mode in terms of what it does to brightness. You've got hue, saturation, and dark stabilizer. Input sources, Alien FX lighting, so these are the lighting that you can find at the back, as I mentioned, so you can customize it or have a set color, or indeed go for a whole spectrum, for example, if you so wish. That will also apply in the little LED found at the front of the monitor. Then going into display, that's to do with the brightness, the contrast, and these type of things, which you could expect to find in display section. Got brightness at 0 just for my camera to pick it up. You've got the audio volume, which you can enable or disable. The menu personalized, which you can personalize the keys. I'm not too much fan of this because it's limited. I would have liked it to have, let's say, the overdrive settings that you can choose from here, but unfortunately that's not the case. You can have the on and off standby with USB, and other than that, some information about your display. So for example, in my case, running 1080p 240Hz. And now we get on to the image quality. So as I mentioned, this is an IPS panel, and tested with my Datacolor Spider X Elite, it gets around 94.2% in sRGB gamut coverage and 111.2% in gamut volume. In other words, it's overzealous, as you'll see from this image over here. What this means is that in the sRGB color space and against the sRGB color standard, it gets an average delta of 2.09 and a maximum of 7.28, which isn't the worst, or neither is it the best results that you can see out the box for this monitor. Given it's an IPS panel, I was potentially expecting just a little bit more color accuracy. On the plus side, the contrast ratio is perfectly acceptable at 1047:1, and what I really did like about this monitor is the fact that it has a good peak brightness of around 430 nits. Minimum brightness is sitting at around 37 nits, while if you were to dial down in terms of the responsiveness of the monitor and put it into its most extreme mode, the maximum brightness here drops to 390 nits, whilst its minimum brightness drops to 32 nits, so something just worth bearing in mind. Now onto the brightness uniformity, it's not exactly its forte. You can see from this image over here that it's pretty off in a lot of areas, specifically in the top right. While this is panel lottery, so it's just worth bearing this all in mind. And in terms of backlight bleed, it was again acceptable. Given it's an IPS panel, you should accept some sort of backlight bleed to come through, specifically for a non-pro grade monitor. And in this respect, you can see a little bit of backlight bleed, but again, perfectly acceptable. Now, while all of these factors are going to be some sort of importance for certain people, truthfully, this is a gaming monitor, and really, for someone who's played over 2,000 hours of competitive Counter-Strike, currently global on my main and my Smurf is Supreme, which I find a bit hilarious, and also has reviewed over 175 different monitors. I was very much intrigued to see how this would compare, specifically in comparison to the Asus monitor, which I previously reviewed, and found it to be one of the best fast-paced gaming monitors, as I mentioned at the beginning of this review. Well, I can safely say that this monitor does not compete. So let's get a few things out of the way. It's a full HD panel, and it has 240 Hz. Yes, it will feel a little bit more fluid over 144 Hz monitors, or of course the classic 60 Hz example, which I find ridiculous, but the 240 Hz refresh rate is there and for you to use. Furthermore, that increased refresh rate means that your VRR range, in other words, if you're going to be using this with AMD FreeSync or NVIDIA G-Sync, which with my RTX 2080 Super connected over DisplayPort, meant that I had really nice fluid experience and a tear-free gaming experience, which is really, well, a massive tick box for casual gamers. But this isn't a casual gaming monitor. You wouldn't buy a 240 Hz monitor if you're a console gamer, for starters, or secondly, if you are a casual gamer. You're going to be looking to buy this if you're a serious hardcore competitive gamer like myself when it comes to Counter-Strike. In this respect, the input lag is acceptable. It's not exactly the best, but it's acceptable. For competitive play, I can see myself, using this in terms of input lag, although it's not the lowest input lag that I've come across when it comes to either fast-paced or slower paced gaming monitors. When I say slower paced, I mean 1440p 144 Hz monitors versus 1080p 240 or 280 Hz monitors. But its response time is really where this monitor falls short. Now, you've got 3 different modes to choose from. In its normal mode, the monitor is not that responsive. In its medium mode, there is a little bit of inverse ghosting that appears, and to a point, I find it to be, not say unplayable, but I did find it a little bit distracting on a game like Counter-Strike, which really doesn't look like the most visually appealing game in the world. If you were to go to a non-competitive game, or even go to Valorant, which is a competitive game but is a lot more graphically intense, then you'll find yourself potentially even dialing down the overdrive to its default 0 level, at which point you're losing in terms of the more responsiveness of the monitor due to the overdrive setting being dialed up. If you were to move to the maximum overdrive setting, here there's just too much inverse ghosting that appears, at which point it just becomes unplayable and just not a pleasant experience. I tried to do this on Counter-Strike on Deathmatch, and I just couldn't see myself using this monitor. I would just absolutely rip my eyeballs out if I had to play at maximum overdrive setting with this monitor at 240 Hz, for example. So I just found it unacceptable, and in this respect, the responsiveness of this monitor simply can't keep up with some other 240 Hz plus monitors out there, let alone 1440p 144 Hz monitors, which put this monitor to shame. So you can see where I'm going with this, and truthfully, I just can't see myself recommending this monitor. Yes, it's got 240 Hz at 1080p, and it's got FreeSync and G-Sync compatibility and some fancy RGB lights, which you're probably never going to see. But ultimately, where it really counts in terms of color accuracy, it's not quite there. While it's decent, it's just not quite there. And furthermore, in terms of input lag and response time, these two fundamental things, which are often glanced over by either reviewers or indeed manufacturers, this monitor falls short in comparison to its competitors. So if you're looking for an ultra competitive gaming monitor, you should look at the Asus monitor instead, which is down in the description below. If you're not an ultra competitive gaming monitor, and I would consider myself as an ultra competitive competitive gamer, I would still go for a 1440p 144 Hz monitor that has fantastically low input lag and response time, and that's where my pick would still be, even if you are global elite at Counter-Strike like I am. So that's just my honest thoughts and opinions about the monitor. Let me know in the comments below what you make of the monitor, and of course do like this video if you like it, subscribe to see more honest content, and of course favourite and share to always help the channel grow. Alright guys, I've been totally dubbed, take care and bye bye.